Good morning, everybody. This is Robbie Lee once again with a short tutorial, I hope, about Golf Clash, and it's specifically for beginners. Whenever I first started playing the game, I didn't understand anything about what they call the ball guide on the club properties. And so this video will be a little bit about the ball guide, which is at the bottom of your club properties windows, and also wanted to point out right now that, as you can see, I have the rough cutter selected for a rough iron. Well, if I click on machete, it's got an upgrade available, although I don't want to upgrade it, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This is a good example of ball guide differences. As you can see, the rough cutter on the left has a ball guide of 2.0, okay, while the machete has a ball guide on the right of 1.0. The plus 0.5 is what I would get if I upgraded the club for 1600 gold. I would also get another 6 in backspin, so I would have 56, which would be more than the rough cutter, and I would have a plus 10 on top spin. Right now it's 0, and the rough cutter has 11. The accuracy on it would be 20 still, and the power would still be 82. Well, for 1600 gold, to me, that simply is not enough bang for your buck, so to speak, because the rough cutter has a lot more accuracy and will still have a lot more accuracy. It'll still have a little bit more top spin. On rough irons, I'm not too worried about backspin. It has more curl, but it has more ball guide, and that's what this video is primarily going to be about. Now, here's how to understand the ball guide. As you can see on the left, the rough cutter has a ball guide of 2.0. The maximum is 4.0, so it's halfway to full ball guide. But as you can see by the bounce indicators, it's going to bounce once, twice, and then it disappears. So the ball is going to continue going past that second bounce. And you have to calculate that into your shot when you take a shot. Let's take a look here at a wedge. I found one that's a pretty good example. I use the dart right now because I have it. Here's another tip. You can click on a club that you don't have, such as the Firefly. I don't have it yet. I'm going to get it, I'm sure. And you can still see what the properties are, so you can get an idea of what you would get if you get that club. Anyway, looking down at the ball guide, you'll see that the dart has a 2.5, which is it's okay for a wedge. Each different type of club is going to have, different properties. That means that it's better, because, for instance, on a wedge, the ball guide on the Firefly of 3.2 is pretty good, and the ball guide on the dart is only 2.5. What that means is that I have to take into account that when I get ready to take a wedge shot from the fringe or just off into the fairway, but close enough to the hole to still make the shot, I need to remember that the ball is going to continue to move for another bounce and a little bit more before it actually stops. So I can't put the end of my ball guide in the hole right at the hole, because if I do that, it's going to go past it. And so you back away a little bit based on the ball guide, and you just have to remember that. You won't be able to see what the ball guide is when you're there. One more good example is up here in the long irons. Now, the Goliath is a good club when it's upgraded. I haven't got it upgraded past 1 yet, but I'm using the backbone. So let's look at the Goliath and the backbone. You can compare clubs like this to see which one is better, which one you want to use at the moment. The ball guide on the Goliath is 2.3. The ball guide on the backbone is 2.5. It's not that much difference. Okay? The reason that I'm using the backbone instead of the Goliath is even though the Goliath has more distance, the backbone has 50% accuracy, and the Goliath has 0. And on a long iron, I'd like to have as much accuracy as I can get. If we look at the wedges, this is a very good example for the ball guide. The big dog has a 1.3 and the Viper has a 2.4. So the Viper is bounced 2.5 times just about before the ball continues to roll, and the big dog is only going to bounce once and disappear. So you're not going to have very much ball guide on the big dog when you get ready to take a shot. It's going to go quite a ways further than what you would anticipate. If you look at the sniper, which I don't have yet, you'll see that right now, even though it's at 0, it's a 3.7 ball guide. And when it's upgraded fully, it'll go to 4.0. Okay? 4.0 is the maximum. With 4.0, you can almost put the end of the ball guide on the hole, and it will go into the hole after you adjust for wind and everything. So, we're going to play a small beginner's hole again so that I can put into action what I've been trying to tell you and try to show you what a ball guide looks like on the course, as well as how to judge the effectiveness of it accurately, because a lot of beginners make the mistake of putting the ball guide right at the hole, and then it goes past the hole, and that's the reason why. Now, if you can see here, I'll turn it sideways. See how, remember that the extra mile doesn't have much of a ball guide, right? And so it's going to go way up here. It's not going to stop back there where the end of the yellow line is. So I think that's a pretty good spot to leave the target. I don't want to run out of time, because I only want to shoot the one hole for the video.
Perfect shot.
So it's important to make a perfect shot, and the only way that you can do that is by practice. It's just, if you start off by trying to put your ball in the center of your circle that you get whenever you pull back your trigger, that's what we call the trigger right there. See, he's pulling it back. Try to put it in the center of the circle. You can overpower it like he's doing now.
Great shot.
And to try to hit a perfect shot, try to put it in the very center of the circle. And when you're in the center of the circle, it will begin to... Okay, here's a good example of the ball guide. Remember the wedge, the dart. The dart has two something, I forget what it is, but look where it's going to bounce. And now, let me show you where it's going to bounce if I move it. If I move it up, it's going to go up there. If I move it back, see the end of it? So I always, on a wedge shot, go as far forward as I can. And then the reason I do that is because then I can line it a hole and back it up. I'm backing it out this far, even though the wind's against me, because if I don't back it away, then whenever the ball actually travels, it's going to travel further. And so I anticipate possibly losing this hole because, okay, here's the fellow here. You can see his ball guide. Now he has it lined up right exactly for the hole. But his is level 7. You can see it on the while he's lining up, you can see what level it is. So he very likely will make the shot. It's perfect. He's going to underpower it a little bit. He hit it great. And that's why whenever you pull back the target that you're trying to shoot a wedge shot with, you'll see the target get smaller and smaller. That means that the wind is affecting it less and less. So, the more that you, the more ball guide you have on a wedge, the better off you are. Now, the wedge that I actually like to use most of the time is the Dart's Fair. When it's upgraded, the skewer is pretty good. The rapier, that one's pretty good. Or rapier, that one's pretty good. The wedges don't have a lot of ball guide, but the Firefly's got 3.2. The only problem with the Firefly is that the accuracy doesn't get that much better. It'll only go up to about 50, and that's full upgrade. But here's the other thing about wedges. As you can see, Firefly's got 72 topspin, and the Dart's only got 7. Whenever you get into the wedge shot and you get ready to spin your ball forward, that is front spin, that is the way that you can pull the target back further away from the hole, thereby decreasing the effect that the wind has on the shot. And with a better ball guide, you can see exactly where it's going. If you use something like the down in 1, if you look at that, it's only got a 1.0 ball guide, whereas the Dart has 2.5. Here's another thing. If you want to compare clubs and you want to compare two clubs, and you can do this. You can, for instance, I can select boomerang, right? I'm not going to use it. And then I can click down in 1. Okay, and as you can see, you can compare the two clubs. You can't select a club unless you have it, but you can look at the properties. And so you can see that the down in 1 only has 1.1. The boomerang has 2.1 in ball guide. With the wedge, accuracy is pretty important, and the accuracy on the down in 1 will go up to 100. The accuracy for the boomerang is only going to go up about 40%. And here's another tip. If you look closely, you'll see that there's a definite light colored blue line next to those properties where it stops and becomes a little bit darker. A good place to show you is look down there on the down in 1 on the backspin. You can see right now it's 0, and the line to the right of it is kind of a dark blue, but then it stops and becomes a darker blue. So what that means is that at maximum upgrade, that first blue line is going to be where it's going to wind up, and it's not going to go any higher. The curl on the down in 1 is eventually going to go up to, it appears to be, 100, because there is no darker blue to the right. Over on the boomerang, the top spin right now is 10, as you can see on the left. But if you look at the kind of lighter blue line to the left of it, you'll see that it's not going to go up that much. And then it's going to stop, and that's going to be the top of its upgrade capabilities. So keep all of this in mind whenever you choose your club, and that is to choose something with a good ball guide, unless you're good at guessing. Another tip, I see a lot of folks have the down in one because it's got such a high accuracy rating, but the down in one is actually a good club if you want to try to dunk it. Dunking it means that it goes straight into the hole without bouncing, right? And it's really good for that when it gets to be 100%. And it'll have a lot of backspin, quite a bit of backspin. So you can backspin it in case you miss it. It'll back up and stay close to the hole anyway. But the ball guide is not there. It's not ever going to be there very good. And that's because it's mainly used for dunking. Here's the problem with that. If you're far enough away from the hole, say for instance past the fringe, a few yards, like 15-20 yards away from the hole, and it requires a wedge shot, and that's kind of a long wedge shot. And while this one has the power to do it, the down in one I'm talking about, the wind is going to affect it a lot more, and you still have to adjust your ring into the hole for the wind. So it's just something to keep in mind, and that's a little bit advanced. So I hope that this has helped some of you beginners. One more time, you see the wood here that I've chosen is 2.4 in the ball guide, and the ball guide for the big dog is 1.3. And ball guide simply has to do with how much of that line you see whenever you take a shot where your ball is going to go. How much of that line is going to indicate where the ball will actually land up. The lower the ball guide, the less you can see where the ball is actually going to wind up. The more of the ball guide that you have on the club, then the more it's going to be accurately where the ball guide is. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like,